Hi, my name is Anna and I'm 25 years old. I live in a small, peaceful town where life seems quiet and steady. From the outside, everything about my life looks perfect. I have a kind husband, a cozy home, and a good job. But inside, my heart feels heavy. A year ago, I made a decision that changed everything. I married Mark. He's caring, thoughtful, and loves me with all his heart. But I don't love him. I married him out of hurt and anger, hoping to move past the pain caused by my ex-boyfriend. I thought it would make me feel better. It didn't. Mark, however, doesn't seem to notice. He showers me with love, flowers, notes, surprises. He looks at me like I'm his whole world. And every time he does, I feel like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. One evening after dinner, Mark looked at me with a soft, hopeful smile. His eyes sparkled and his voice was gentle as he said, "Anna, please don't give up on us. I know you don't love me yet, but I believe you will someday." Those words stayed with me, echoing in my mind long after he said them. They were filled with so much hope, so much belief in something I couldn't feel. It was heartbreaking because I knew I couldn't give him what he wanted. I wanted to say something, anything, that would make it better. But what could I say? That I didn't believe love would grow, that his hope was misplaced? Instead, I nodded weakly, forcing a small smile. Mark is such a kind person. He's the type of man anyone would dream of having as a partner. He goes out of his way to make me happy, even when I don't ask for it. He plans thoughtful surprises like bringing home my favourite snacks or writing little notes and leaving them in places he knows I'll find. Once he left a note in my jacket pocket that simply said, "You're my sunshine, Anna." I wanted to feel touched, but instead I felt guilt. My mum has always been the kind of person who believes in patience and endurance. She often tells me, "Anna, love takes time. Not everyone starts off deeply in love, but it can grow. You just have to be willing to give it a chance." I've tried to hold on to her words, to convince myself that maybe she's right, but it feels like I'm holding on to a thread that's unravelling with each passing day. Mark doesn't see my struggle, or maybe he chooses not to. He pours his energy into making me happy. Last week he planned a romantic evening for us. When I came home, the lights were dimmed and candles flickered softly around the room. The smell of my favourite meal filled the air, and he stood there with the biggest smile, looking so proud of himself. "This is for you, Anna," he said warmly. "I just want to remind you how much you mean to me." I tried to match his enthusiasm. I sat down at the beautifully set table, listened as he talked about his day, and laughed at his jokes. But inside I felt like a fraud. The meal tasted like ash in my mouth, not because of the food, but because of the weight of my emotions. After dinner, he suggested we take a walk in the park, the same park where he had proposed to me. He held my hand and pointed to the exact spot where he had knelt down with the ring. "Do you remember this place?" he asked, his voice filled with tenderness. "This is where I promised to love you forever." I nodded again, swallowing the lump in my throat. I wanted to scream, "I don't love you, I never did." But instead, I stayed quiet. I didn't want to hurt him, even though I was hurting myself every day by pretending. It was late one evening when Mark brought up the idea of having a baby. We had just finished cleaning up after dinner, and he leaned against the kitchen counter with a hopeful look on his face. "Anna," he said gently, "have you ever thought about starting a family? I think having a baby could bring us closer." I froze, clutching the edge of the counter as my heart raced. A baby! The thought of bringing a child into this marriage, a marriage that felt like a cage, made my stomach twist. How could I possibly raise a child with someone I didn't love? I took a deep breath and forced myself to reply. "I'm not ready, Mark," I said quietly. "I need more time." He nodded slowly, his shoulders slumping just a little. "That's okay," he said, trying to smile, but I could see the sadness in his eyes. He didn't press the issue, but his disappointment lingered in the air like a shadow. That night I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling as Mark slept peacefully beside me. I felt like I was drowning in my own thoughts. This wasn't the life I had imagined for myself. Every day felt like a performance, like I was wearing a mask I couldn't take off. The next morning, Mark greeted me with his usual warmth, handing me a cup of coffee just the way I liked it. "Good morning," he said cheerfully. "I believe in us, Anna. We'll make this work." His optimism felt like a weight pressing down on me. I wanted to believe him, to share his hope. But I couldn't. The more he tried, the more trapped I felt. One day I reached my breaking point. I sat alone in the living room, clutching a small bag I had packed earlier. I had planned to leave that night, to walk out and start fresh somewhere else. But as I crept into the bedroom and saw Mark sleeping so peacefully, I stopped. His face looked calm, almost childlike, and my heart twisted with guilt. How could I leave? He didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve to wake up and find me gone without an explanation. Slowly I put the bag down and returned to the living room, tears streaming down my face. The days that followed felt like a blur. Mark continued to try, planning little surprises and outings. He took me to a new restaurant one weekend, hoping it would cheer me up. Another time he suggested a short trip to the mountains to get away from it all. I went along with it, but nothing seemed to help. My feelings didn't change. Mark's unwavering hope and kindness only made things harder. I wanted to set him free, to let him find someone who could love him the way he deserved. But fear held me back. What would people think if I left? Would they call me selfish? Would I regret it? I felt stuck, torn between guilt and the desperate need to find my own happiness. I feel trapped in a life that isn't mine. Mark is a wonderful man, but he deserves someone who loves him back. I think about leaving, but fear holds me back. Fear of judgment, fear of being alone, fear that this might be the best life I'll ever have. One night I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. I've lost my joy, my dreams, and my sense of who I am. I'm sharing this story so others don't make the same mistake. Don't rush into marriage for the wrong reasons. Wait for love that feels real and right. Mark deserves happiness, and so do I. Now, I have to be brave and choose a new path. I don't know where it will lead, but I can't keep living like this. Thank you for listening.